He had not known his uncle well, not in the sense that builds memories or forms impressions strong enough to echo through adulthood. They had exchanged words only a handful of times over the years, most often at family gatherings blurred by distance and noise, and the man had always seemed to him more like a background figure than a presence, the kind of relative who sits alone with a drink and leaves before dessert, unnoticed and unremembered. So when the call came informing him of the inheritance of the apartment in the old part of town that now legally belonged to him, he felt little more than confusion wrapped in the vague unease that often accompanies sudden gifts from the dead. There was no ceremony, no formality beyond a key handed across a desk, no explanation, no inventory, just an address scribbled in a clean envelope, and a set of tarnished metal teeth that seemed heavier than they should have been, as though the weight came not from the metal itself but from the space it was meant to open. The apartment was older than he had expected, not in disrepair exactly, but worn in the way lived-in places tend to be when solitude has been the only inhabitant for too long. The floor creaked in familiar patterns, the wallpaper peeled in corners that the eye found before the hand did, and the air carried that faint sourness of time pressed too tightly into one place. It wasn't unpleasant, not yet, only silent, as though the rooms were waiting to be acknowledged. He spent the first few days cleaning slowly, not because the place required it, but because there was something soothing in the repetition, opening drawers, wiping down shelves, folding sheets that hadn't been touched in years, and with each action, he felt the apartment become slightly less opaque, slightly more his. All but one part of it. In the bedroom, which faced east and never quite warmed despite the morning light, there stood a tall, narrow closet door set deep into the far wall, framed by molding older than the rest of the room, painted the same dull gray as the surrounding wall but with a texture that suggested a different wood beneath, something denser, darker, less willing to be covered. The door had no knob, only a small keyhole beneath a brass plate dulled with age, and though he had tried every key on the ring, including one that looked promising, small and ornate and cold to the touch, none fit. The door remained closed. More than that, it remained closed in a way that felt deliberate. At first, he thought nothing of it. Many old apartments had sealed rooms, and used storage spaces, places lost to renovation or neglect, and he moved on with the business of occupying the rest of the space. But over time, his awareness of the door deepened, not in fear exactly, but in focus. It was always visible, always in the corner of his eye, even when he faced the opposite direction. Its presence was not loud, not aggressive, but anchored, like a fixed point in a shifting room. He began to dream of the bedroom, always from odd angles, always with the door more prominent than it should have been, and in those dreams he never opened it, he only stood near it, listening, while something on the other side held its breath. Then, one night, just past 3 in the morning, he heard the first sound. It wasn't loud, not the bang of something falling, not the scrape of furniture, not the groan of the building settling into its foundation. It was a knock, light and quick, 3 taps spaced evenly like the metronome of a polite visitor. He sat upright in bed, pulse still slow with sleep, unsure at first if he had imagined it, if it had come from the hallway or the street outside. But as his breathing settled and the silence resumed, he realized it had come from the bedroom wall, from the inside of the closet. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just listened. No second knock came. When morning arrived, he checked the door. It was unchanged. Locked. Still without a knob. Still flush with the wall. Still watching. He told himself it had been a dream, the mind playing tricks in half-sleep, the echo of a noise distorted by nighttime quiet, and for a time, he believed it. But the next night, the knocking came again. This time 4 taps, slower, lower, like the pressure behind them had changed. He did not respond. He lay still, heart climbing toward his throat, and when he finally rose and placed his ear to the wood, he heard nothing, not movement, not breathing, only silence. He started sleeping on the couch. He told himself it was more comfortable, that the bedroom was too cold, that the mattress was too soft, but he knew the truth. The closet door had become an occupant, not a feature, and the knocking, though infrequent, though soft, was a language he did not want to understand. Still, the door remained closed. Still, no key fit. Still, something knocked. The knocking became routine, not in frequency but in certainty. It no longer surprised him, no longer startled him from sleep or made his breath catch in his throat, and that was perhaps what unsettled him most, the fact that he had adapted, that something so profoundly unnatural had been absorbed into his sense of normal, that he could lie on the couch at night and hear the faint, deliberate tapping echo from behind the bedroom wall and simply listen, unmoving, as though it were no more significant than the sound of the wind between buildings or the distant groan of the old elevator cables somewhere below. It changed in tone over time. At first, the knocks were sharp, tentative, exploratory, but later they became softer, slower, more rhythmic, almost familiar, like the way one might rap their knuckles absent-mindedly on a table they've known all their life. He tried recording the sound once, placed his phone on the floor just outside the bedroom, left it running overnight while he slept fitfully under a thin blanket with the lights on and the television playing static at low volume, but when he played it back the next morning, the knocks weren't there. Or rather, something was there, but it wasn't sound in any recognizable sense, only moments of interference, subtle shifts in background hiss, like breaths half held by the room itself, like the shape of silence when something is pressing against it from the other side. He played the file over and over, listened through headphones, amplified the waveforms, searched for patterns, but what he found was not absence, it was withheld.